Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this long-awaited webinar. We're so pleased to finally launch this report, Circular Textile for Sustainable Future. My name is Yvette Ashby, and I'm the CEO for the Professional Clothing Industry Association Worldwide. And I'd like to give a special thanks today to our partners, Peter Belt and Peter Ramsey from BITC and the team at WRAP and Textile 2030. You'll learn a lot more about them as we go along this afternoon. This report has been a result of months of hard work and dedication, and I'd like to thank our fantastic contributors. There's 14 of them that took part within the case studies that we put together in this report. These are some of the most renowned and innovative companies in the world, and they're leading in the field of reuse and recycling technology. PCIAW has worked closely with BITC and Textile 2030 to ensure the textile industry accelerate its move towards circular, sustainable future. This journey is just the beginning. We believe it is imperative to educate the entire textile industry, including students, designers, and garment technology, and how to design with sustainable principles in mind. In order for us to make a lasting change, we need to foreground the concept of circular textile across every aspect of the supply chain. COVID-19 and Brexit showed us how fragile our global textile chain can be. As we prepared for this year's COP26 Climate Summit, this report comes at a crucial time for the professional clothing industry. Sustainability is a journey for life. We have designed this report to educate the global textile and professional clothing supply chain and how to design in circularity and effectively dispose of end-of-life textiles. We hope you'll join us on this journey. It won't be easy, but it is imperative that we go on this journey together. This afternoon, I'd like to introduce our panel who will be helping us on this journey. And my first panel this afternoon is Catherine Salvage from WRAP. We've joined partners and one of the founders' signature for Textile 2030. And I'm delighted that Catherine is on this webinar with us today, because they're leading the way for us all to follow. Our next presentation will be from Peter Ramsey from Business in the Community. And again, you'll explain later on. Peter is not actually here physically, but there's a recording that is prepared for us. The next presentation we'll hear from is Declan Osborne, and he will explain why we actually produced this report to support the journey with Textile 2030 and BITC. Tim Cross, Project Plan B, amazing. I met Tim a few years ago and his journey for sustainability, and we're really excited to hear his development in the short space of time. Stanley Russell, a lot of you would have known from APT. He's worked across the industry and has a lot of insight on how to develop how he developed his sustainability journey. We also have Jamie Hart from Avena, and Jamie also is excited to be here today. Thank you, Jamie, as you said earlier, and he will explain later on about his sustainability journey. So let's start this afternoon. Catherine?
Okay, so Hi everyone, I'm Kat Salvage and I'm the Sustainable Textile Sector Specialist at WRAP, and we're a UK-based environmental charity. So firstly, I just wanted to thank the PCIAW for inviting WRAP onto the panel today, and it's great to be able to support the launch of their really important and timely report on circularity for the professional clothing industry. So we recognise that for clothing and textile businesses, from fashion to homeware to the professional clothing industry, the past year has been really tough. But as we come out of the pandemic, climate change and the health of our natural world will continue to be a massive challenge. So awareness around sustainability for textiles is growing, and it could become as big a consumer issue as plastic pollution. So this could cause reputational risks to businesses that don't take action in all sectors of the textile industry. So Textiles 2030 is the UK response to this, and it's WRAP's new voluntary agreement, which has been designed to limit the impact of clothing and textiles on climate change in line with the Paris Agreement, and also accelerate the move towards a more circular industry, aiming to transform the UK's clothing and textile sector for the good of the planet. So why do we need to act now? So the climate imperative is really clear. Our growing production and use of textiles is a major contributor to climate change, and this can't continue. And it's also time we address the amount of water used in production and the impact on water-stressed areas. So this isn't just about the environment, it's also about people's health and their livelihoods. There's also a crescendo of demands for action from many different stakeholders. So government are developing financial and regulatory policies, such as extended responsibility and minimum design standards. Mandatory carbon reporting for businesses is going to be required by the government by 2025. And consumers want to buy from ethical and environmentally conscious brands. And as this awareness grows, this kind of trend is going to extend into the professional clothing sector, as businesses will want to ensure their staff uniforms, their workwear and their PPE are all included in their sustainability strategies. And they'll be looking at implementing green procurement policies. So I'm sure Peter's presentation from the BITC will kind of touch on that next. And then also investors are demanding climate-related finance disclosures and evidence of environmental, social and corporate governance. So businesses can also benefit from the opportunities presented by moving to circularity. So there'll be more security of supply offered by closed loop sourcing. Service business models and their contribution to customer loyalty will be key. Also new business models like re-commerce and repair will help us get more value out of our products. And also preferential interest rates available through sustainably linked loans. So even if you cast aside the environmental imperative, the case for action is still very compelling. So what is Textiles 2030? So it's a UK textile sector initiative to drive the industry to collaborate to make rapid science-based progress on circularity and climate action. And we want to transform the way that the industry supplies, uses and disposes of clothing and textile, changing the industry from its linear take, make, dispose model to a circular model where products are produced more sustainably, used for longer, reused and finally recycled back into the system at the end of their useful life. So the initiative will bring together businesses, governments, research institutions, NGOs and community organisations behind a common vision and a commitment to a set of ambitious targets. So onto the targets, and these are very ambitious and they were deliberately set to be ambitious. So by 2030, we want to reduce the aggregate greenhouse gas footprint of new products by 50%. And this will put us on track to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees in line with the Paris Agreement on climate change, and it will also help businesses achieve net zero. The second target is to reduce the aggregate water footprint of new products sold by 30%. And then to drive circularity, we will add a material intensity target in 2022, and this will aim to reduce the amount of virgin textile materials used to meet consumer demands. And this is going to play a really important role in displacing supply chain impacts, achieving the carbon target and accelerating solutions that address the industry's growing textile waste problems. So these targets are kind of absolute reductions. They're in line with recommendations from science-based targets. And we have scenario modeled these, and they are achievable, but as long as signatories really make them a core part of their business strategy. So how will Textiles 2030 reach its goals and support its signatories to meet the targets? So in April, we published a roadmap for Textiles 2030, and this sets out three key elements of how we'll work with businesses and other stakeholders to create the radical change that's needed. So firstly, it will be about measurement to motivate businesses and focus action. Secondly, innovation to change the way the industry works through new business models, the way we manage product and material flows, and how we interact with our customers. And then finally, it's going to be all about collaboration. So to build strong partnerships to test, learn, share and adapt different ways to enable the circular use of products and materials and transform the way we do business. So I'm just going to deep dive a little bit more into those three areas. So firstly, on measurement, Textiles 2030 will help businesses deliver results by using our tried and tested Target Measure Act approach. So this allows businesses to measure their environmental impacts using our footprint calculator and identify hotspots where they need to focus their actions. So the graphs on this slide were created using our footprint tool, and they show a provisional estimate of carbon targets and water targets. And we can see by kind of just switching to low carbon energy in the UK and supply chains and using lower impact processes, it only gets us about a third of the way to those targets. And then you can see from the kind of highlighted sections on the graph on the right-hand side that nearly 50% of the targets can be achieved by circularity actions that relate to using recycled fibres, reuse business models and designing products for longer life. So footprint modelling and using the calculator tool will be critical for businesses to evaluate and prioritise which actions they should be taking and build sustainability and circularity into their strategies. So secondly, on to innovation, we need to be innovative about the way we think, as well as the way we kind of use technology and innovate with technology. So to create this really truly circular textile sector in the UK, we need to look at the product life cycle as a whole. So that starts with design and making products that are durable, look good and will function for longer, but that also consider the end of a product's life at the design phase. So making sure we design products that are recyclable through the infrastructure and the technologies that are currently available or that will exist in the kind of near future. So we also then need to manufacture these products out of recycled content to drive the demand for recycled fibres and investment into the recycling sector. And then we need to minimise the amount of waste that's created in the production process and make sure this is kind of collected and recycled back into the process. Then looking at how we offer customers and clients alternatives to ownership, for example, through service models, rental and lease models. And then also providing consumers and our customers with care and repair information and services to help extend the lifetime of products that they already own. Then we really need to educate and make it easier for citizens, employees, clients to dispose of workwear through the correct channels, so to provide readily available collection points and take-back facilities. And then looking at reuse, we need to look at how we can get more value from existing products by looking at where the workwear sector can increase reuse where there isn't kind of issues around security. And this could be through service-based models that offer commercial laundering or repair services. And then finally, we must ensure that textile waste is recycled into new raw materials that are used in the sector. So to support businesses to implement circularity and drive innovation, we're focusing on three key areas. So designing for circularity. So we want to work with our signatories to agree good practice design principles that can be implemented as appropriate to their kind of business models and customer base. We're also looking at circular business models, and we want to develop the business case and pilot reuse business models as appropriate to product ranges and sectors to kind of learn from these and then help the development of large-scale implementation. And then finally, looking at closing the loop on materials, where we want to support our signatories to set up partnerships and pilots to supply and use recycled fibres in new products and demonstrate the potential to develop new end markets for textile waste, accelerating the commercialisation of fibre-to-fibre recycling in the UK. And then on to collaboration. So the last couple of slides showed that the textile industry has a really big job ahead of it. And this isn't something that one business or one sector can do alone. So we really need the industry to come together, collaborate to influence the way we design products, manufacture them, use them and dispose of them. There's also a real urgency for change to happen fast if we want to tackle climate change and meet the ambitious Textile 2030 targets. So through the development of Textiles 2030, together with organisations from across the industry, we've developed a pathway for textile businesses to follow to help them implement circular use of products and materials at a large scale by 2030. So the pathway will set out some clear activities, milestones and outcomes to ensure the industry can take collaborative action and keep on track to deliver the goals. And it will also require signatories to work together and build strong partnerships with the whole textile value chain. And then finally, it's just really important that we bring customers and clients on the journey with us, as they're going to play a key role if we want to achieve this circular system. So we seek to kind of share clear messages that influence behaviours around how we buy, procure products, use and dispose of them. So as circularity is so complex, the cross-sector collaboration will be really key to build the strong partnerships around the value chain. So this slide just shows how Textiles 2030 will bring together stakeholders from across the value chain and how the evidence and insights gathered in the work that we will do is going to inform governments on potential new policies and funding mechanisms for the industry. And this is going to be especially key as DEFRA develops its proposal for EPR consultation for textiles by 2022. So on this slide, it just kind of shows all our signatories and supporters that have already joined. So we've got over 70 signatories now, and they've all joined because they believe in the power of collaboration, and they're kind of signed up to work together to design for circularity, trial and implement these new circular business models and close the loop on materials. So we really want to support the professional clothing industry in the transition to circularity, and this is where working with the PCIAW will be so important. So WRAP's expertise in running voluntary agreements and delivering accelerated change and the reduction in impacts, kind of coupled with the PCIA's knowledge, expertise, really respected voice and support of the professional clothing industry will help us focus on barriers that are specific to the sector, such as regulation, and procurement guidelines, and help us focus on what support businesses will need to overcome these barriers and move towards circularity. So just a little bit more of a focus on how Textiles 2030 can support the professional clothing industry. So firstly, we recognise that the industry does have its specific challenges and opportunities. So as part of our first year's work, we aim to build on the PCIAW report released today, and Textiles 2030 will carry out a review of the sector to identify key impact hotspots and the areas where action and pilot activity really needs to be focused. And it's going to be really important for us to work closely with the PCIAW and businesses from across the professional clothing industry to gather those insights, data, and build evidence-backed business case for innovation, investment into circular solutions for this sector. We can also support the industry by helping businesses measure their impacts and focus their action. And as I've mentioned before, this can be really important as businesses prepare for green procurement policies and also mandatory carbon reporting. And then it's just that collaboration will be really key in bringing businesses together from across the value chain into that pre-competitive space to address sustainability and circularity through design and innovation, whilst keeping the regulatory requirements of the sector in mind. And then finally, we can kind of also give the sector a seat at the table and a dialogue with government to influence forthcoming legislation and policy developments around EPR and eco-design standards. And I think finally, it's just that WRAP can't do this alone, and we need to do this collaboratively with businesses from across the professional clothing sector. And that's why we're really excited to support the PCIAW, and we really look forward to working closely together on the sustainability and the circularity of the sector. And yes, if anybody would like to hear any more about Textiles 2030, please get in touch, or you can get in touch with us through the PCIAW. Thanks.
Catherine, thank you so much. That was quite comprehensive. And anyone listening, please just pop your questions in the chat, or if you have any questions for Catherine, if we can't answer them today, I'm sure she'll be able to answer you later on, but we're going to leave all the questioning until all the presentations are done. And again, thank you all for joining. I can see we have quite a lot of people online at the moment. Our next presentation is from Peter Ramsey. Unfortunately, like everyone at the moment, Peter is incredibly busy, and he sent in a recording for us, which we will play now. So this is Peter Ramsey, is the manager of circular economy for business in the community. And our, there you are.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you today. Unfortunately, I'm not able to join live this afternoon, so thanks to Yvette and Declan for allowing me to submit a recorded presentation. We've been working very closely with Yvette and Declan over the last few months, as we at Business in the Community have been undertaking our own circular professional clothing project, which aligns very nicely with what the PCIAW have been doing. For those of you who might not be familiar with Business in the Community, we are a not-for-profit business membership organisation. We were set up nearly 40 years ago by the Prince of Wales to champion responsible business. So we inspire, engage and challenge our members to mobilise them as a collective strength on a wide range of issues, including creating a skilled and inclusive workforce, building thriving communities in which to live and work, and innovating to repair and sustain our planet. The many issues that we work on are summarised in this graphic, which we call the Responsible Business Map. The 3 environmental areas we work in are in blue at the bottom, and these are the circular economy, climate action, and nature stewardship. So, as I mentioned, we've been undertaking a professional clothing project which aligns very nicely with the PCIAW one. The Professional Clothing Industry Association's report focuses very much on creating a circular supply chain, whereas ours takes more of a buyer and user perspective on the same issue. And I see these as being 2 sides of an equation that are needed to create a circular professional clothing system. So on one side, we've got the why and how a supplier and the supply chain should supply circular clothing, whereas on the other side, we've got the why and how a buyer should buy and use circular professional clothing. And these are the 2 objectives of each of our reports. Professional clothing is a new area for us, and we've learned a lot over the last 6 months or so. The report which we've published is the conclusions of a 6-month process, which began back in January with a launch event where we brought together our members to highlight the sustainability issues within professional clothing. We then held a survey and a series of interviews with members to identify shared challenges, and then held a series of roundtables with our members, but also with PCIAW members representing the supply chain. This is where we developed and agreed a set of recommendations. We then collated the insights, case studies and recommendations to form the report, which we launched earlier in June. We see the report not as being the end of this project, but being the beginning of the next phase, during which we will seek to scale the uptake of the principles which we are suggesting. Our recommendations fall into three broad areas. Firstly, optimising use. So this is about the organisations that already have stocks of professional clothing, managing it in a way where they get optimal value out of the clothing that they've got, and also getting the systems in place to allow more circular approaches in future. We also provide some recommendations on how organisations can find reuse and recycling opportunities for the garments they already have. The second area of recommendations is around buying better, and I'll go through some of the procurement principles in the next slide that we recommend. The final area of our recommendations is about engaging stakeholders. So this is about looking beyond your own value chain to understand how you can create the wider system change which is necessary to truly deliver circular professional clothing. And here are the 7 procurement principles that we have recommended in the report. The objective here is to get our members and other procurers of professional clothing aligned around this common set of asks that they can go to the supplier with. The first 3 of these look at tender design and evaluation. So firstly, life cycle costing. This is still an emerging, very innovative area, but we've got an example in the report of one supplier that has developed a methodology for life cycle costing for one particular garment type. This rewards garments that will last a longer duration in use because a higher upfront cost is spread throughout a longer life of the product. Secondly, balanced scoring assessments. So we're asking procurers to reward sustainability and circular aspects. And finally, circular business models. So considering if the tender design can include things like rental or leasing models that have additional circular services embedded within them. Next, we come on to 4 suggested assessment criteria. The first of these is maximising utility, and there's several different aspects to this. So firstly, if garment failure is the reason why garments typically need to be replaced, then maximising utility is about designing garments that will last a longer life. But we also look at process design and how that can be used to maximise utility, for example, in the sizing process. So we know that a lot of garments typically get designed to be used as sizing samples, and we suggest ways that this can be avoided through digital sizing. We also have recommendations for how garment design and system design can be used to reduce the amount of garments, or to increase the opportunities for garment reuse. So if employees typically move on, and that's the reason why garments need to be replaced, then we suggest ways that the garments can be reused either within the organisation or externally. The second area of assessment criteria is circular material selection. And this fundamentally is about looking at how the materials that are chosen for the garments can best optimise the recyclability at end of life. And really the core suggestion is about having a single material being used for the garment design, if at all possible, as this is what the recycling infrastructure currently is best able to accommodate. The next assessment criteria aligns very closely to this, so best practice end-of-life treatment. We see that recycling can currently be optimised when the recycling is embedded within the supply contract rather than being dealt with as a separate issue by somebody else at a later stage. And finally, we look at certification. Now, there aren't any circular garment certifications currently available, but there are ones that look at issues such as supply chain transparency and the use of harmful substances in garments. So these can form part of a bigger holistic process. So finally, what we're asking our members to do about this. Well, firstly, obviously, read the report and the recommendations that we've got within it. Secondly, we're still learning and we're still keen to find more examples of best practice as we continue to develop our evidence base. So if you're aware of any organisations that have really good approaches to procuring in a circular, sustainable way, please let us know about that so that we can use it as an example. And finally, within our project, we have some time available to support organisations that are looking to implement a pilot project that can be used as a practical demonstration. So let us know if you have a big procurement coming up and you're looking to be ambitious and to invest in doing this in a more circular, sustainable way. We'd love to be able to support you on that and to share your example. So thank you very much for listening today, and I'm sure Yvette and Declan will be able to share a report as follow-up to this webinar and to put you in touch with me if you have any questions or queries. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you to Peter. The report you're referring to, anyone who'd like to download the report, we'll certainly put you in touch with the two Peter. They are our partners, and as he explained earlier on, we are sort of working on two sides of the same coin. This is a journey which I explained earlier that we're on, and it takes collaboration, for us all to work together as a team and shared knowledge. And it's so important. We found this out working with Catherine and Textile 2030 in WRAP. So, my colleague Declan now will explain why we did this report, what we've learned from it, and how we intend to put all the principles that we've learned in place to help our industry as a whole. Declan?
Thanks, Yvette. So I'd like to say welcome to everyone who is listening today. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who contributed their insights into this important report on circular textiles, and to everyone who is speaking at the webinar launch today. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to Mark Glover, David Moon, and Catherine Salvage from Textiles 2030, and both Peter Belk and Peter Ramsey from Business in the Community as our valued partners. We wrote this report to provide clarity to the textile industry on how to design in circularity and recyclability into textiles. If there's one thing you take away from this webinar today, it must be that you cannot begin to design a garment before you learn how to dispose of it. It is my hope that this first of its kind report, Circular Textiles for a Sustainable Future, will act as a guide and a starting point for those looking to start their journey towards a sustainable circular future. Next slide, please. For those of you that do not know, PCRW is the member-driven trade association for the global professional clothing industry across the entire supply chain for corporate wear, workwear, and PPE. PCIAW is here to provide representation to the professional clothing sector and education to our members. Professional clothing is a complex and highly technical market within the textile industry, in that it's strictly regulated due to the life-saving nature of workwear and PPE. During the pandemic, it became evident that those outside of our industry do not fully understand the complexities inherent in professional clothing. Garments need to be highly durable, functional, and breathable all at the same time. Despite the greater obstacles that we face, the garment technologists and designers within the professional clothing industry passionately continue to innovate, and I hope that they will find the significant report of great use. I believe that more can be achieved when we work together. And since we are in a race against time to reverse the destructive impacts of climate change, it is imperative that action is taken now to facilitate a circular textile economy. This report is educational in nature and provocative by design. You will understand what I mean as I continue. So now let's talk about the elephant in the room, cost. The biggest obstacle to achieving a circular textile economy is cost. For decades, the industry has avoided action on the basis that sustainable clothing is too expensive, and that's just not going to wash anymore. Every day, it becomes clearer that the cost of inaction is our planet. Creating a circular textile economy will require a transformational change in the system, requiring new infrastructure, processes, and ways of working across the entire supply chain, up to the end users and complete with a network to collect clothing at its end of life. It's time to bite the bullet, understanding and accepting the necessity of such changes and the costs that are required. Buyers must work in partnership and communicate with their suppliers to select sustainable professional clothing. And as we see with renewable energy, when the technologies benefit from economies of scale, costs will decrease. It's an investment, and I believe it's the most important investment in the history of textiles. Next slide, please. So next is the state of the global textiles sector, and I'm going to be showing you a few pages from the report. Over the last 6 months, PCIAW has been researching the environmental impact of the textile industry, the circular textile economy, and the recycling technologies to better understand the strategies available now and the potential solutions of the future. The textile industry is one of the most polluting industries in the world, and it accounts for 10% of global carbon emissions. Globally, 90 million items of clothing are sent to landfills each year, and only 1% of material used in the production of clothing is recycled into new clothing at its end of life. And it is causing avoidable destruction to our planet, its ecosystems, and the livelihoods of some of the most vulnerable people on Earth through the impacts of climate change. It is clear that more time and investment is required to reach commercialization of recycling technologies and to truly close the loop in the textile industry. So we are calling all governments around the world to support and invest in the circular textile economy, because the industry cannot do it alone. Although there is no logic in waiting to design in circularity and recyclability, because in 2 or 3 years' time, when the textiles reach their end-of-life stage, recycling infrastructure will have expanded, and clothing manufactured without consideration for recyclability will needlessly suffer the fate of landfill or incineration. Business as usual will leave a legacy of chaos and destruction, and the textile industry must wake up and act for a sustainable future and prevent the mess the younger generations will inherit. Next slide, please. It's not too late to inspire action and enact a transformational change in the textile industry. Here you can see the chart on PCRW's vision for circularity and the principles we believe the textile industry should follow. The chart aims to guide the entire supply chain on how to collaboratively design in circularity in every aspect, and is applicable to the entire textile industry from fashion to professional clothing. And as I said at the beginning, you cannot design a garment until you first understand how to dispose of it. This is why we started our chart with a dismantling recycling process. There are 2 types of textile recycling technologies, mechanical and chemical, which have different capabilities and requirements. It is important to understand the specifications of the recycling technologies and to design easily dismantling of non-recyclable components to allow for efficient processing. Next, we get to education, which is the key to sustaining a circular textile economy. Teaching of the closed loop system must start at the educational level, with all schools, colleges, and universities educating student designers on how to design in recyclability before they enter the textile industry. And then the fiber and yarns, they're the starting point of a garment's production. And so it is imperative that they are circular ready, particularly if using synthetic materials. Adopting biodegradable fibers provides natural disposal. However, designing for reuse at end of life should always be the objective. Fabrics in the professional clothing industry, they can be complex to meet the strict regulations. And so the fabric and membrane producers must consider the linings and adhesives to ensure compatibility with recycling technologies. And then the garment technologists and designers, They are key because they oversee every stage of production from design to manufacture. Therefore, it is imperative that circularity is at the forefront of their thinking. Without garment technologists and designers working closer together and ensuring recyclability in every aspect, the clothing risks the fate of landfill or incineration. Next, the manufacturers must take responsibility for ensuring that products are recyclable at end of life and incorporate recycled content to minimize the use of virgin material. Creating products with durability and longevity in mind is vital as the textile industry moves away from the take, make, and dispose model. Offering repair services can help prolong the lifespan of textiles and reduce overconsumption. However, all textiles will have an end of life, and so it is imperative that manufacturers ensure recyclability to avoid incineration or landfill. With workwear and PPE, the garments might need to be laundered before being sent to recycling if contaminated with the likes of oil, grease, or smoke from hazardous working environments. And lastly, collection at the end of life is the final piece of the circular puzzle. You can perfect the circular textiles throughout the design and manufacturing process, but if nobody is going to collect the garment for recycling, then they're just going to go to landfill anyway, to the detriment of the planet. Next slide, please. So circularity, how do we recycle textiles? This report, Circular Textiles for a Sustainable Future, took the PCIAW team on a journey of discovery as we uncovered new technologies providing solutions to some of the key challenges the professional clothing faces. We found a recycling company with security credentials which can help protect brands. We found thread which dissolves with microwave technology for easier dismantling of non-recyclable components, and laundry services adopting NASA technology to decontaminate workwear and PPE. I strongly recommend everyone on this webinar today download a copy of this first of its kind report on circular textiles and act upon creating a sustainable future for the textile industry. Next slide, please. I would like to thank the amazing photographer, artist, and activist, Benjamin Wong, for allowing us to use his powerful images to provide this report with the gravitas it deserves. Benjamin Wong has worked with the BBC, Forbes, and many more to create an impactful message about waste, overconsumption, and pollution. PCIAW are proud to feature his incredible artwork in the Circular Textiles report, and I hope the provocative artist will inspire our readers to act. Next slide, please. Finally, I would like to say thank you to all of our members, to those who have just joined us, and to those who have supported PCIAW from the very beginning. To everyone listening today who are not members of the association yet, this is just an overview of what we do. We publish the quarterly PCIAW Voice magazine, reporting on the latest news within the professional clothing industry, supporting our members and promoting their new product launches. PCIAW Voice magazine is distributed to over 68,000 buyers, suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors. Just like today's report, PCIAW offers information and education to our members. Members can access publications such as the PCIAW Guide to the Rules of Origin to help navigate post-Brexit trade, and the PCIAW Buyer's Guide, which educates readers on the complexities of the tendering process and provides exclusive insights and tips. We are here to provide answers to our members' questions, and if we don't know the answer, we'll know who does. Next slide, please. The newly launched Uniform Buyers Network matchmaking service helps connect buyers with trusted suppliers. PCIAW buyer members can enter their procurement criteria and be paired with compatible suppliers, which can help deliver innovative solutions adopting the latest sustainable garment science and technologies. The Uniform Buyers Network associates came to PCIAW and said they felt like if they don't initiate the conversation on new sustainable innovations with their suppliers, they wouldn't know about them. So the Uniform Buyers Network matchmaking service will change that and take away the pain for procurers researching the market. PCIAW aims to open new opportunities for all of our members who are buyers and suppliers in the professional clothing industry. Next slide, please. And finally, I'm glad to announce that the annual PCIAW Summit Network and Awards event will take place this year on the 2nd and 3rd of November at the Radisson Blu Edwardian Hotel, London Heathrow. The two-day event will bring together and connect the professional clothing industry with influential speakers educating our guests on the most important subjects of our time, particularly circularity and sustainability. The awards will celebrate achievements of businesses and individuals and provide global recognition for their innovations and dedication. It's the most highly anticipated date in the professional clothing calendar and provides something to look forward to after a year of virtual Zoom calls. I hope to see you all there. Tickets are available online, or please get in touch. Next slide, please. Join PCRW as a trusted member today and support the Professional Clothing Association. You can find my contact details on the slide. And I'd like to thank you all for listening, and I'll pass it over to Yvette to get to our next speakers.
Thank you, Declan. That was a lot of hard work. And I personally like to thank at this point my incredible team. Without them, I'd still be writing that report next year, I think. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Tim Cross from Plan B. So over to you, Tim. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Yvette. Can I start by saying a huge thank you to Yvette and to Declan and to all the people that have helped put together this report. It's only come out today, but I've had a brief look through it. It's fantastic, it's really comprehensive, and it's given the industry a huge opportunity to really think about what we're doing and the journey that we're all on. Now is the time. Read it and enjoy it. I think it's fantastic, and I'm so pleased and proud to be a part of it. Just to introduce Plan B. Plan B is a garment manufacturing company. We've been making uniforms and workwear for the past 10, 15 years. And we are part of the industry that makes a huge amount of polyester clothing. The majority of garments that we make are polyester. They are, polo shirts, t-shirts, sweatshirts, you name it. They're all made out of 100% polyester, or at least that's what we thought. And we decided a few years back that we were going to try and look at our sustainability criteria and try and take whatever steps we could to try and improve our carbon footprint. The first thing we did was to look at what our garments are made of. And when they're made of 100% polyester, you really realize that actually you're taking oil out of the ground to make your clothing, and almost all of it is being thrown away. So we decided that we would see if we could get our garments made out of recycled polyester. And that predominantly comes from plastic bottles. And so we managed to make our polo shirts and sweatshirts, etc., all out of 100% recycled polyester from plastic bottles. And that included both the labels, the buttons, the trims, the lot. Fantastic. The whole lot made out of recycled bottles. But actually, all that we'd done in that was take a fully recyclable material, plastic bottles, and turn it into a completely unrecyclable material of clothing. So we weren't actually making our journey any more sustainable at all. So you then come to the next point of how are we able to recycle our garments? Because if we're just stuck in this linear track, then there's no chance of us being able to actually improve our position. So we worked with some very clever people to work out how we could make garments like polo shirts 100% recyclable. And if you think about it, you turn plastic bottles into clothing. Why can't you turn clothing back into clothing? It surely must be possible. And indeed it is. And with a lot of work, we managed to get our garments fully recyclable. So now we can turn our polo shirts and sweatshirts back into rPET. So there you go. That's a couple of polo shirts recycled back into polyester rPET. And working with Reprieve, who are probably the world's largest recycled yarn manufacturer, they can take our rPET and turn that back into yarn. We can take the yarn, turn that back into fabric, and we're working with Klotman to develop a range of fabrics that are fully recyclable. But we can take all of these fabrics back in and turn those back into clothing, which is then recyclable, and turn that back into rPET, circular clothing, round and round, and the problem is solved. We started this journey because we believed that is a solution that we need to share with as many people as possible. And over the next 3-4 months, our ambition is to recycle 20 tons of textile polyester, and we're working with some of the people on this call today to facilitate that. And we've been able to secure enough polyester to do the first section of that, and we will hopefully by September, as I say, recycle 20 tons of textile polyester. The problem that we've got is the majority of that textile polyester is not designed for recycling, and we can't recycle it without intervention. And that's where design comes in. It is so key to focus on design, because if we design the clothing for recycling, we know what to do with it at the end. And for us, that's designing a monofiber. So everything is 100% polyester. Polyester goes in, 100% comes out, polyester comes out. We know what's gone into it. We know what we're going to get out of it. And designing in circularity is the key thing. And when you read through the report and look at what's been written down there and what has been said today, the focus is always on design. Design for circularity. When you design something with an end of life in mind, you solve almost all of the problems up front. It becomes, every system becomes easier, no matter whether you're using our system of mechanical recycling or whether you're using some of the other chemical solutions. They all benefit from a designed process. If you go into it with design in mind, then the rest of it becomes a lot easier. And for us, we're working on recycling polyester. We're having to remove zips, we're having to remove labels, and it costs a lot of money, costs a lot of time. It's unnecessary. All those zips, those trim details can all be designed in a monofiber format. So you can have polyester versions of this. And that enables us to get to a point where we've got garments that are designed to be recyclable. And when I sort of look at what's been going on today and why we're all here today, and there are a huge number of people on this call, and I promise you that this is where the industry is going. There is so much demand for it. Once you start understanding that you're going to have to make some changes, you're going to have to understand that we're going to recycle and we're going to build in circularity. Once you do that, you start to realize that actually every garment that you're making today is going to be a problem that you're going to try and clear up in 3 to 5 years' time. And so who is going to be clearing that up? And what are you as a business and as a brand going to be thinking when you've got hundreds of thousands of garments which can't be recycled? Now is the time to start acting and start going, okay, what can we do to make sure that the garments that we produce today are going to be recyclable? And we have a solution which we think is a really viable solution, and it solves some of the problems. Doesn't solve all of them. We have to collaborate. We have to work with loads of other people. And there's some brilliant people who are working on these things all the time. And the report that we've published today lists those different opportunities that are there and different ways of recycling. But I think the key thing for me is to remember that you can design for circularity, that you're not alone on this, and that we have so many people coming to us every day asking us, how do I get on board with this? And it's not just our solution, it's any solution that can get us to a point where we can be more circular and we can do something about our position as an industry. And fundamentally, that's all I'm gonna leave it there, Yvette, because I think the key part of this is look at what you're doing, look at the clothing that you're making today, and work out how we can make these garments circular. Thank you.
Tim, thank you very much. I couldn't have put it better myself. We've had a tremendous amount of interest that's registered for this. We know there's a huge demand for it. We'd had over 1,000 people who's looked at the event, and 300 that is registered for. And at this current moment, we sort of running at around about 118 to 120 people on this call. So we know that there is a demand for what we're talking about and sustainability. It is imperative. This is not, this one report, as Peter pointed out in his, this is just the beginning. We have got a journey, a long way to go. Hence why I'm proud to be working with Catherine and Textile 2030 and sitting on 3 of the round table that they have, because it is so important to our industry. And for me personally, this is sort of 2 decades of screaming, and I use that word literally, about sustainability, and the journey has to start somewhere. And I sincerely hope that everyone on this call download the report and see how many amazing companies is out there ready, willing to help you. I'd like to now go to our next speaker, Stanley Russell. Stanley, I've known for, well, I don't even want to say it, it's too embarrassing to be honest, too long, but he has been championing his work within our industry for a very long time. And I'm very honored and proud that he's agreed to work with us on this. So Stanley, over to you.
Thanks, Yvette. And welcome from Northern Ireland. It's actually sunny today. I'm the owner and founder of APT Fabrics. We design and manufacture high-performance waterproof fabrics and consult on innovative solutions for the industry, whether it's a fire assembly or fabric. And I'm pleased to be able to push on the sustainability aspect. But here are a few points that I want to bring forward. Less than 1% of existing textiles goes back into the manufactured textiles. 53 million tons of textiles are incinerated or go to landfill per year. 8 million tons of plastic ends up in the ocean. And by 2050, it's estimated that there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Within the workwear industry, 95% of all high visibility clothing ends up in landfill. And you have even companies setting up and manufacturing plastic bottles so they can be recycled. This is a sorry state of affairs for the planet. And unfortunately, we as the textile industry are one of the main contributors of that pollution. Now, I've been asked to look at the challenges of manufacturing recyclable PPE. The obvious one is the fabrics and garments need to be comfortable, but also meet the respective standards. Some components of high visibility garments are currently not recyclable, but companies are looking at how that can be rectified. Contamination of clothing is a risk, so specialized collection and cleaning is required prior to recycling. But in my eyes, there's virtually no challenges to manufacturing recyclable PPE apart from limitations to commercial collection and recycling, and also, as Tim mentioned, the designing of the garment. Most garments are composed of mixed textiles or materials, so a separation process is required. Importantly, there are technologies in the marketplace that can do the recycling, including mixed fibers, but they've not progressed much beyond pilot stage due to the lack of consistent resource to work with. One of these is Worn Again Technologies, whose pioneering polymer recycling technology can separate, decontaminate, and extract polyester polymers and cellulose from cotton, from non-reusable textiles, PET bottles, and turn them back into a new textile raw material as part of a continual cycle. A possible step in the right direction for garment manufacturers would be the sewing thread from Where to Go. They have developed a sewing thread that could be used in the production of garments, and when subject to microwaves, dissolves. This would help with the separation of fabric panels from accessories like zips, reflective tapes, etc. Soon, a major workwear company in Belgium showcased garments manufacturing this technique at the last A+A exhibition. Because I specialize in performance fabrics, I decided to address the issue of recycling waterproof, high visibility clothing. Apart from color, can you tell the difference between these two fabrics? From the other side of the computer screen, no. But they have the same outer fabric, but different membranes, one of which is polyester, which makes the fabric 100% polyester and in theory, fully recyclable. By the way, the outer fabric can also be made from recycled polyester and do the same job. The fabric came about due to extensive research with my partners to obtain correct fabrics and membranes to manufacture products that, in my opinion, would meet the required standards. Continuous in-house and official testing was carried out to confirm this. Now, I was lucky enough to be working with O'Neill Sportswear in Northern Ireland. And Kieran Kennedy, the managing director, mentioned to me that they were experimenting with University College Cork on recycling of their waste product. I cheekily asked him, could I send some of my fabric to them so that you could see whether it's recycled or not? And he agreed, and I sent off my fabric, and their process proved that the product could be recycled and purified into purified beet chips. I then took a leaf out of Tim's book. I looked at the garment construction. The outer waterproof fabric was now sorted. I then sourced waddings, linings, and zips. They were polyester. The reflective tips were always going to be a sticking point, but with the availability of where-to-go thread, the construction and recycling at end of life is not going to be an issue. As a safety feature, I also looked at Vislite DT, which is a phosphorescent and reflective tape, and is the only tape on the market that offers a sustainable light source without the use of batteries. The commercialization of the microwave separation technology just needs to catch up. If you haven't seen one of these in a while, there's something wrong. But the amount of disposable single-use masks lying around the street is ridiculous. But what is happening with the masks from hospitals? I assume incineration. But could they be collected and recycled into something usable? Like, for instance, the wadding from Plo insulation, which is fully made from recyclable fibers. Our customers who purchase large amounts of uniform, like Network Rail, have expressed a need for collection and recycling to meet their corporate and social responsibility. Now, if you're helping your client to build in an end-of-life policy, the tender, it may help you win the tender, as a competitor may not have the procedure in place. A win-win for your company and hopefully the environment. Growing up and living through the troubles in Northern Ireland, I'm also very aware of security issues. Garments being supplied into the emergency services at end of life for security reasons need to be destroyed in a manner that they can't be used as garments. But that doesn't mean they cannot be recycled into fiber or chips. We can supply and service a contract. Why can we not use that ability to collect or arrange for collection of the products at the end of life, in turn helping your client to fulfill their corporate and social responsibility? There are also going to be opportunities for managing agents and garment suppliers. You will be seen by your client and helping them with an issue, and in the process, obtaining a resource that can be sold on for recycling. In the fire market, there is an end-of-life policy already in place, with old fire suits being donated to charities used by volunteer firefighters in underdeveloped countries. And I just noticed on LinkedIn there recently, 6,000 fire suits from Ballyclare were sent off through the charity. And also through a collaboration between Sion Fire, or France, the French National Forestry Board, and a recycling company, firefighter garments were recycled into oven mitts, recreational bags, and laptop sleeves. They're also being recycled into insulation for fire stations. For recyclers and processors, there could be a regular source of recycled fiber and chips for creating recycled products, reducing their respective costs and benefiting the environment. So secure collection and recycling companies are required to fulfill this need. And I believe our next speaker from Avena Group may be able to help you there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stanley. Yes, we have the great pleasure of welcoming Jamie Hart for Avena Group. I'm really excited to hear his presentation, because here is where we had a lot of companies talking to us about security and how would it work, etc. So I'm delighted to have Jamie here today to explain about the technology they have and how it works. Welcome, Jamie.
Hello, thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie and I work for Avena Environmental. I have a presentation to go through just to show what we do and how we do it. Just before I go into that, I just wanted to pass the feedback from the textile industry with the clients I've spoken to. And I do feel there's been a huge positive change in how they're operating, and identifying that something needs to change with the end of life process. And I've been overwhelmed by the amount of people and companies reaching out to myself and Avina to help him deal with the issues of textiles going to landfill. The biggest problem I've found with speaking to clients is security and scalability. How can you securely collect my textiles from my single site or multiple sites? So the great news is we're here and we're here to help. And at Avina, it's our business to make sure no one knows yours. So I'll share with you my screen, and this will show you a little bit about how we do it. Let's just get that working. There we go. So hopefully you can all see that. So just click to the next slide. So there's just a little bit about Avina and a few key points on how we operate. So we started off as a GDPR security company, excelling in confidential paperwork sector. We found a huge gap in the industry for secure recycling for textiles. No one was really doing it. So from the GDPR industry, we understand how important security is and confidentiality. We know the importance of brand protection and protecting your intellectual property, and we've adapted the same approach to textiles and garments as we had to the paperwork. We have multiple depots across the UK, allowing us to service anywhere from John O'Groats to Land's End, with expansion plans to open more sales offices and depots. So scalability is not an issue, and we're forecasting 100% growth this year. Flexibility in what we do has been key to our success. Varies with each different client. We work out a tailored solution that works for you, but again, I'll go into a little bit more detail in the slides coming. So current clients include DPD, the Environmental Agency, multiple workwear companies. Another important aspect of Avina is being here for the client. So our client care team are fantastic. They operate on a 2-ring policy. So when you call us, they're going to get that call and help you out as soon as they can. And we operate on a consultation basis. This allows us to understand your needs and how we can support you, and what you need from us. So just go to the next slide. Now I worked really hard to make this right, so I'm really proud of this, and I hope you all enjoy as much as I did. So step 1, and this is how the process works. So we deliver your choice of consoles, and they vary from different sizes. So all secure hoppers for your textiles, and we work with the most cost-effective option. Next step, step 2, is agreed scheduled collection of the textiles take place. So you'd put all the garments, fabrics, offcuts, whatever they are, you put them all in the secure hoppers that we deliver. No segregation is needed your side. That's the beauty of the system. You put it all in one hopper, and then the scheduled collection takes place. Our vetted CSR teams will arrive in unmarked vans. Collections are pre-agreed with Avina. All vehicles we use are GPS tracked, unbranded, with a slam lock. That takes you to step 3. So when we take the textiles back to our depots, they are all shredded for brand protection, ensuring everything is destroyed and unrecognizable. The process, step 4, the textiles go through the shredder, all garments, materials, then go through our mechanical spindling process. This individualizes the fibers, which we then bale up, and the fibers are ready to go to our recycling partners who will repurpose. Step 5, you receive your certificate of destruction for your audit trail. Also an impact statement, which has been highly successful. This includes what we've recycled and CO2 saved by doing that. And step 6, textiles taken back to repurpose within the UK supply chain, honouring the closed loop methodology. That leads us back into the loop where we come and collect your next lot of textiles and garments. So the next slide is our tier process, which I understand from the feedback I've got in the last couple of weeks, people are really excited to see. So this is our tier system. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll give you a moment to read on the screen of what happens. So in tier 1, the materials that typically go in there are cottons, wools, tencels, monoblend fabrics. Tier 2 is the polys, nylons, and complex blends. And tier 3 is everything else. And if you had any specific questions on this slide, where you wondered where your materials fall into on our tier system through the Avina process, I'm happy to do that. Please contact myself directly, and my details will be on the end slide. And it's important to be transparent. So something that is important to myself and Avina is reducing what goes into tier 3. Where it is still being recycled, we feel this is a last resort, and our Avena Innovations team are working on this and improving weekly as our processes get updated to change to make it more effective. And these are our current security processes. So I'll give you a moment to go through those. That's what we've got. They're being reviewed all the time for the latest updates and the latest technology. We've got a multitude of security measures to ensure brand protection, auditability, traceability, and intellectual property protection. We understand your brand is your business, and Avena ensure that your brand has a sustainable end-of-life process. Security measures, as I said, are on the screen. For clarity, the BS 7858 is often referred to as pre-military grade vetting, which is standard for all our staff to undertake, giving you peace of mind that these are being passed to the correct people. Transport is all tracked, traced, and unbranded, again for protection. And in addition, measures that we've taken place to match the changing needs and the clients that we're dealing with is the provision of CCTV footage covering the moment we collect the materials to the moment they're destroyed. And additionally, we can offer witness destruction, where we bring the shredder to you, a service we offer nationwide, typically popular with the public services. So that's our process, and that's how we operate. We currently work with fire retardant uniforms, Kevlar for the Environmental Agency. We've supported the NHS, and even as of this week, looking into skis. So the variety of the materials is vast, and we're supporting more and more companies. We work with a workwear company currently who are operating a uniform buyback scheme, where the customers buy the uniform. They're then offered a credit against the next order as an incentive to bring the old uniform back, as an end-of-life process where we've got regular collections from multiple sites with them. I've helped clients achieve their sustainability goals from a one-person weaver all the way through to multinational facility management companies who are turning over billions a year. So we just want to help everyone and everyone. We've got a patent-approved textile hopper for the secure storage of the recycled textile, with a plan to make them out of recycled textiles very soon, completing that circularity. And I've included my contact details on this slide. And in terms of supporting you, and if you have any burning questions, please contact me on the methods I've listed there. I'm also on LinkedIn, so connect with me on there. And for feedback, I'd love to know what the most interesting thing you found during this presentation, and that'd be fantastic. And that's it from me.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. That was brilliant. As I said at the beginning of my introduction with Jamie, one of the several of the calls that Declan and I received is people asking about security, and we get these inquiries from right across the industry. So it's what the aim of our report is to give you the tool to start your sustainability journey. We believe that we have done that within this report. We know that things evolved over time. This is the start, as I said, and it will continue to evolve. Companies such as Plan B, Avena, APT, they're all gearing up to and ready for companies such as yourself, because one of the things that we were hearing right at the beginning, Declan and myself, is that there's no infrastructure. What we wanted to prove to you is that there is an infrastructure right here on your doorstep, and the infrastructure is here. The only reason you don't know it is because nobody's actually told you about it. So we've gone through a lot of hard work, and I also want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has contributed their case studies. Not everyone was able to go into this report, and I am sorry, but we've taken who we believe is ready to take this journey and start helping. We will continue to evolve and update the report as we go along, working with Catherine and with the two Peters to make sure that there is no stone left unturned in our journey going forward. Now, we're going to go to the Q&A. I noticed there's quite a few people who's come, oh my goodness, putting things on here. While I'm sitting here and watching the computer, and we've got, God knows, hundreds of people signing up for the report. So thank you all for that. Everyone on the call at the moment, really appreciate the interest that you're showing at the moment. Declan, do you want to read out some of these questions for our panel, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'd just like to point out as well for anyone who hasn't got there yet. So the report is downloadable for free on the PCRW website homepage, www.pciaw.org, and you can find it there and download for yourself. Okay, so let's just get on to some of these questions here. So there is a question about regenerative agriculture. I wonder if Stanley might be from APT Fabrics would be a good person to ask this. So the government has been particularly quiet about regenerative agriculture as a future supply chain for fabrics. We have seen this type of cotton being used by Patagonia, leather from Timberland, and North Face. So regenerative agriculture would make climate positive garments. Why do the British seem to be overlooking this ingredient source?
Thanks, Chris. I saw that one. I was hoping I wasn't going to get it.
Maybe Tim can jump in as well.
Yeah, obviously, cotton is a big user of water, a lot of water. Now, there are other aspects where I think hydroponics is being used, I think, from memory. But on the whole, the government, in my opinion, has neglected not only the textile industry, but manufacturing industry as a whole within the UK. I think that came home to roost during the time of the COVID pandemic, where we found out where we were too reliant on offshore. And I know it's digressing slightly, but the good thing about that is the manufacturing has now come onshore and we now have production in the UK. You've had fine cotton threads, I think we're manufacturing cotton for the first time in the UK. That's resourcing and hopefully better for the environment. But apologies, Chris, or Charles, I can't really answer that question myself because I'm more into synthetics as opposed to organics.
Thank you. Thank you, Stanley. Tim, can you help on that at all?
Charles's question, it's very kind of him to pose it to us when he probably knows more about it than we do. There are tremendous opportunities coming forward, and if we can do more, we should do more. I think that products made out of cotton, what Lenzing are doing, and all the opportunities that are coming along with cellulose fibers are going to be fantastic. How that blends in with regenerative agriculture and what else we can do in this country, well, we are completely underutilizing wool. We're completely underutilizing other natural fibers and what we can make out of waste. So yeah, there's a huge opportunity there. Goodness me, there is the field for regenerated garments, fibers, and so on is massive, and it's going to be incredible what's coming through over the next few years. I mean, Kat, you may have something further to add on that one. I'll quite happily throw you into the fire as well.
Definitely, Kat, it's your turn, my lovely.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I'm probably kind of echoing what Tim and Stanley have said. But obviously through Textiles 2030 and our previous agreement in SCAP, we're looking at the data behind all the fibers and the fabrics, and where the industry can take steps to improve. And I guess where the supply is, and with regenerative agriculture, it obviously is probably the best method of supplying cotton, but the supply isn't there yet. So we do need to work with our brands and retailers. I'm sure we will be looking at where regenerative agriculture is coming through. Like Tim said, there's other fibers that are coming through Lenzing, recycled cellulose, using agricultural waste, biosynthetics. So there's so much going on, and through Textiles 2030, hopefully we'll be able to kind of get the data behind those fibres and kind of provide businesses with kind of a pathway to reducing their carbon footprint by the fibres that they choose.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Charles Ross. Charles Ross, I can see another one here from your good self. Do you, Declan, over to you.
Okay, so there's an interesting one here about international standards, because I know Peter from Business in the Community touched on this in his procurement principles, that there was a bit of a lack of standards specific to circularity. I guess it's a bit of a newer concept to general recycling. So maybe this is something that we could look at with Textiles 2030 to try and see in our policies to government that we could create international standards. So Catherine, is that something that we'll be able to help get your support on? Because the professional clothing industry is full of regulations and standards, and it's
absolutely, and it's so strictly regulated. Catherine, that is definitely something that I will be speaking to Claire about on our meeting. There has to be a standard that is set, and I've spoken to Peter about this already right at the beginning. So I really do hope we'll get your support in that going forward. We have to set a standard. There is no standard at the moment. So yes. The next one. So, sorry, Catherine, did you want to answer?
I was just going to say, yeah, design, minimum eco-design standards is definitely something that we will be looking at through Textiles 2030 and developing with our signatories. And I'm sure from the presentation that I showed, you can see a lot of our signatories are from the kind of fashion side of the textile sector. So it will be obviously really key that we kind of engage with businesses from the workwear sector and the professional clothing sector to make sure when we're looking at design standards, we're looking at specific standards for your sector and where it differs from just fashion and fashion retailers. So yeah, it would be really important there, and that is something we are kind of working, supporting DEFRA with in their kind of development of EPR, the EPR consultation. So yeah, that's a really key area for our work, will be eco-design standards.
Absolutely, and as you know, I've pointed out to you many occasions that our industry is so strictly regulated because all the garments that especially wore in the emergency services sector is highly regulated. It's life-saving equipment. So therefore, we cannot skimp on it. Whatever we do, it has to be very much to any regulation that the government says yes to. So this is something, as I said, we spoke about previously, and I really do hope that will form part of the policies going forward. Declan? Yep.
Okay. So another one from Charles. So he's wondering if the interaction of professional clothing and circular economy, how well that fits, because he said there's three types of materials: metals, naturals, and synthetics. The first metals are rare and don't get put into recycling. Second are the naturals become less durable, and the third with synthetics. And with a lot of the professional clothing being mixed fibers, he's wondering if the industry would be wasting efforts whilst the recycling companies get up to capacity. But this is something that we touched on earlier, in that as textiles are being created now, in 2 to 3 years' time, when they're, or 5 years' time, when they come to their end of life, recycling infrastructure will have expanded by that time, and they can be put into the recycling companies now. But we spoke with Jamie from Avena, who I understand can deal with blends, and they can go into the different tiers of the categories. So would you just like to reiterate that point based on that question?
Yeah, of course I can. Thank you. So we're currently operating between 30 and 40 tons a week, and that is going to be going up. We've got a client, I can't go into too much detail, but who's probably going to double that. for the next sort of quarter, and we've got the capacity to do that. It's a fantastic business model that we've got. So the more we get in, the more we can open up. So in terms of sort of scalability and actually processing what we can do, we've got the infrastructure to do that. So there's no problem with that. Was that the answer to the question? Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know what? We've got 5 more minutes. And Catherine, I'm going to come to you because there's a question here. Somebody's asking can you summarize the action plan in a nutshell? I'll leave that to you.
Can you tell I couldn't do it in a nutshell by the length of my presentation? I guess it's kind of, UK initiative to kind of accelerate the textile industry on its journey towards climate action and circularity. And it's built on kind of measurement to allow us to see where our footprints are and focus our efforts in the right place. Innovation. So once we've found those hotspots, we can kind of focus innovation to tackle those, and then collaboration. So it's just about everybody coming together from across the value chain to really accelerate the move towards circularity. And I guess it's about us at WRAP and Textiles 2030 kind of providing that competitive space for businesses from across the value chain to kind of collaborate and accelerate change.
Excellent, thank you.
And
we've got another one here, just somebody saying about while recycling is undoubtedly important, we need to emphasize and reuse. Reuse sits in the heart of what we do. I want to reiterate that. Reuse sits in the heart of what we do. It's all about a circle. It's full circle. We go in and we go out. There is no end to this. We don't want anyone to be under the impression that all we're thinking about is the end of life and the end of it. At some point, there has to be an end of life. When it gets to the end of that circle, it's go back in and reuse again. I want to make that absolutely clear because this has come up in several different questions even before this, this webinar. It is important that our industry take heed that there is no end. It's a circle that we're working on. Declan?
Yeah, and there's a comment here in terms of involving laundry experts in terms of ensure the maintenance of fabrics. We have a company called Decontex within this report who uses liquid CO2 technology adopted from NASA in the 1970s, which can be used to decontaminate PPE such as fire suits, construction workwear, in a way that doesn't affect the durability because of the lack of movement compared to water-based laundry services. I know Stanley has been working with companies in the past who's looked at the laundry of PPE. So I don't know if he's had anything to say on that.
Certainly, in terms of decontamination and looking after the longevity of garments, certainly in the farm market, you test to 60 degrees. You wash it at 40, you get a longer life for the product. And obviously longer life for a product is best. If you can get a garment that can last 3 years as opposed to 1 year, it's value for money. It helps the environment because you're not replacing it. And that's the basis of good quality garments as opposed to fast fashion. Mm-hmm. You make it right, you build it to last. But I just wanted to point out, Boris Johnson's wife did an interesting thing this week. She hired her clothing. She didn't buy it. So she's not going to get caught out with wearing the same outfit again.
Thank you, Stanley. We have time just for one more question that's added here. Please add focus on technical textile. Technical textile is part of our DNA within our industry. And technical textile still sits here with us, and it has to work. We touched on this earlier with Avena, and that is the reason why they're on this call, because the technical side of things where we're talking about the emergency services or any other technical textiles is really important and part of the circle. Everyone, I want to take this opportunity to thank you all who stick with us. Our panelists today has been amazing. Do any one of you want to add anything before we go today? No? Catherine, darling, it's lovely to see you. Tim, Jamie, Stanley, really appreciate your support on this. And to all of you still online and still downloading, I can see all the emails coming in. Please, if you have any question, do not hesitate to come and speak to Declan or myself or any one of the panelists here, including Peter Ramsey, who unfortunately wasn't able to join us today. So thank you very much. By the way, I know there's still a lot of questions on here that need answering. Declan and I will endeavor to try and get back to you on that. I can still see you posting the things. Is there anything important that we should be picking up there, Declan, before we go?
I think just to reiterate the information on where to find the report, the questions we can follow up with answers after this webinar. So the report can be found to download for free on the PCIAW website on the homepage. Just fill out the form and you can download it and you can have a look at all the innovative companies leading the way in creating recyclable products and actually recycling them as well.
Thank you all. God bless. Bye-bye.